Morning, guys. Today's lesson, honestly, is going to be building off of yesterday's lesson. I wasn't happy with the way that I explained things yesterday. I feel like I want to come back and revisit yesterday's one more time and try to reiterate something that I've been talking about all year with you guys that hopefully will make this make more sense. So for this first problem where we say 0 and 1/10 times 7, well, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to go through this systematically. So, like 0 and 1/10 times 7 can be written like this: that 0 1/10 is the same thing as the fraction 1/10. So then that would be 1/10 times 7. So here's the key part that I mentioned yesterday, but I really want to focus on. If we're multiplying 1/10 times 7, that could mean 1/10 of 7. And here's what I think we know. Like if we're trying to find out, hey, what is 1/10 of 7? Then what we would actually have to do is take 7 and divide it by 10. And so here's the weird thing. Yesterday is like we were multiplying, yet we were shifting the decimal point to the left. But what I want you guys to see is that the reason that we're shifting this decimal point to the left is because when I multiply 1/10 times 7, that is the same thing as finding out what is 1/10 of 7, which is really dividing 7 by 10. So in this situation, guys, if I take 7 and I divide it by 10, then this decimal point is going to simply shift one single place to the left, and there's our answer, 7/10. And by the way, if you were in my class this year, how many times have I said every division problem can be solved as a fraction? And so 7 divided by 10 equals 7/10, and that's exactly what this decimal number says right here. Let's go ahead and take a look at another example here. We're going to go through kind of the same steps. So in this situation, guys, we're multiplying 0 and 1/100th times 15. And what I'm going to do first is I'm going to go ahead and rewrite that as a fraction. So that really is the same thing as saying 1/100th times 15. And then here's the key part again. 1/100th times 15 is the same thing as finding out what is 1/100th of 15. We've trained ourselves to hear that this year. And so here's what we know. If we want to know what is 1/100th of 15, we would take 15 and we would divide it by 100. So the same thing here. To multiply 15 times 1/100th is the same thing as dividing it by 100. And so in this situation, guys, if I want to divide this number by 100, that's the same thing as dividing by 10 to the second power. So this is going to be two decimal shifts. So my decimal would shift one place, and then it would shift another place. And now our answer is 15/100ths. And guys, to be clear, same thing. Every division problem can be solved as a fraction. 15 divided by 100 equals 15/100ths. And yeah, 15/100ths is the same thing as what we have right here for our decimal number. Let's go ahead and go through one more, and then I'm going to give you guys some practice problems to try on your own. So here we go. This one we have 0 and 1/1000th times 3. And if I want to write that as a fraction, I could go ahead and write it as 1/1000th times 3. And then the meaning of that is if I was, hey, what is 1/1000th times 3? That's 1/1000th of 3. So if I wanted to know what is 1/1000th of 3, then I would take 3 and divide it by 1,000. And dividing it by 1,000 is the same thing as dividing it by 10 to the third power. And so that means 3 decimal shifts. So my decimal shifts would go 1, 2, and 3. And we would end up with 2 empty spots, and they're not going to be 3s, but they're actually going to be 0s. And yeah, there's our answer. In a nutshell, we have 0 and 3/1000ths. And again, 3 divided by 1,000 equals 3/1000ths. So there it is. I hope this makes more sense. Like it's weird, like we're multiplying, but guys, when we're multiplying a whole number times a decimal power of 10, in turn, we're really actually dividing it. And how many times this year have I asked you guys, like, hey, is this a multiplying problem or is it a dividing problem? And so many times the answer to that question is it's both. And that's the same thing here. To multiply 3 times 1/1000th is the same thing as to divide 3 by 1000. So they're really both. They go hand in hand. So here's what I want you guys to do. This is an additional lesson that I created, which means I don't have any workbook pages for you guys to do. How lucky, how sweet, right? But I did create just 8 multiplication problems. All of these problems, guys, are taking a number and multiplying it by a decimal power of 10. And I think you guys can see that. And so what I want you guys to do, like in your notebooks or whatever, is go ahead and write these problems down and do your best to solve them, just like we talked about in the previous 3 practice problems. And once you have come up with your answers for all 8 problems, then go ahead and resume this video, because in about 3 seconds here, I'm going to skip to the next page and show you the answers to these problems so that you can go ahead and do kind of some self-checking. And be clear, guys, I just want to give you a reminder. All of these are multiplying. And so our natural thinking most of the time is like, oh, if we're multiplying, the number's getting bigger. But we got to think about, like, if this right here is 1/100th times 8, that's the same thing as 1/100th of 8. So our answer is actually going to be smaller than 8. And if this is 1/10 times 16, well, 1/10 times 16 is 1/10 of 16. And so, like, don't be fooled by the decimal point shifting the opposite direction, because I think what you know is that most of the, in fact, all of these multiplying problems in turn also are division. So go ahead and pause it, work on the problems, and then when you are ready, resume the video, because I'm about to flip to the next screen to show you the answers. All right, here we go, guys. Here are the answers to the problems. Feel free to check your work and see how you did. Real quick, I hope these all make sense to you. The one I wanted to talk about was the last one, because we had 72 and 4/10 times 0 and 1/10. And I just quickly, I'm going to slide it up, and I'm going to make a little room here. And I just want to remind you of what this equation could be. If I were to write this as a fraction like this, okay? And then if I were to read it from this direction, from 1/10 over this way, 1/10 times 72 and 4/10 is the same thing as 1/10 of 72 and 4/10. And so in that situation, if I want to know, hey, what is 1/10 of 72 and 4/10, I would take 72 and 4/10 and divide it by 10, which is one single decimal shift to the left. So then our answer would end up being 7 and 24/100ths. I hope this work makes sense for you guys today. I hope it made a little more sense today. Tomorrow, we're going to be doing our best to actually go ahead and try to divide by some of these decimal power of 10 numbers. So I will see you guys tomorrow. Have a great day.